What you're about to listen to is part 2 of my interview with Grey Matters Blogs. Make sure you go listen to part 1 so you're all caught up. Without further ado, let's go.
Welcome to the Tiger Nexus Podcast, a place where you'll find interviews with content creators and geeks alike. Your host, Tiger, has delved upon the Nexus and found interesting content creators and geeks of all fandoms. This podcast is connected to the Zero Hero Network. And now we dive in with another episode.
All right, sorry about that.
Sorry, bro. I'll just throw it. I usually have a promotion clip, so I'll put it there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, my wife was just sending me a quick text asking about because I live in rural Texas, so gunshots are not unusual, and so my neighbors were shooting, and my wife was making sure that I wasn't involved in it. So
you're not getting shot at, are you? No, it's all good.
No, it's just the neighbors. But I mean, yeah, I don't know if you can hear them, but yeah, there's gunshots going off all around me. But that's perfectly normal. That just happens around here. Everyone just goes out and takes their guns out and shoots them, and nobody really thinks anything of it. Sharon was just making sure that I wasn't the one being shot at, so everything's good.
At least she has the audacity to go, I hear gunshots. Maybe my husband might be dead. Hang on. Like, at least she cares.
Absolutely.
At least she thought about you.
Well, she just wants to know if she needs to grab her gun and return fire. I mean.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Like, fair enough.
But anyways, you were saying about Spider-Man. Totally agree, and that's kind of the thing of, and that's one thing I'm going. And it's funny that with men, the studios are better about it. Is we do get to see kind of different body types in men more often. We get to see skinny Peter Parker. We get to see more dad bod in a lot of these actors. We actually get to see more of that. But we don't. But I love, and don't get me wrong, I'm celebrating the victories because used to be we didn't get to see that as much. So I'm happy we're making those strides for men, but I wish we could make them for women too.
Oh yeah, that was going to be my end point. Was Power Rangers do it, Spider-Man, and all sorts of so many different like fictional heroes are always the case of, hey, you could be under the helmet, under the mask, whatever the case may be, and Avengers Endgame. Thor is a depressed motherfucker, and he's lost everyone. He failed. He didn't aim for the head, and he becomes a fat dude. He becomes overweight. He's drinking all the time. He's eating crap food, and he's not Thor. He's not himself in Avengers. And everyone people mock it, sure, but people accepted that in his story. But yet we don't see it for women whatsoever. And every single woman in a superhero film is either classed as sexualized or like petite, or at least thin enough that they can fit in some form of like slim wear bodysuit like Black Widow.
Oh yeah. And and what's funny is even when they do pick a more physical woman who actually does have some athleticism, the only ones they're interested in are the ones who don't look like it. Like I always like to point out Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. She doesn't look, the reason they let her be Wonder Woman is because she has the kind of traditional slim body type. But she's actually a lot bigger than you think she is. She's actually very tall. She's actually, she's ex-military. She's actually very physical. There's actually a great video or a great little picture that's her, Gal Gadot, standing next to Jason Momoa, and they're of a height. And she's, of course, not quite as built in the arms as him, but you can tell they're both physically larger people. And then there's Emily Clark standing next to them. And she's like, comes up to their chests. And she's just this tiny little person. And of course, they're very tall and dark, and she's very small and light. And of course, people make lots of jokes about the thing of looking like she's the sunshiny daughter of Hades and Persephone or whatever. But it's just so funny to see that she actually is a very imposing person, because she is very, very attractive, because I think everyone can agree that Gal Gadot is objectively attractive. That's why they're okay with her being bigger, because from a distance, she doesn't look like it. And if she looked more muscular, I don't think they'd have ever let her be Wonder Woman.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it, like I said, a lot of the time, if it is a large woman, they're usually thrown in comedies of some kind. One, I don't actually know her original name, but her actual name, but she's in Pitch Perfect. She plays Fat Amy. Literally, the character's called Fat Amy because the woman's overweight, and now she's lost a lot of weight. She's now literally almost petite herself, and everyone's now bitching at her about it. And I'm confused. I'm like, well, hang on a minute. You like this woman because she plays comedies and she's an overweight woman, and that's funny. But yet she changed her life. She saw that her overweight was affecting her physically, mentally, all that jazz. She loses the weight, and yet you bitch at her still. I'm confused.
Yeah. Well, that just goes to the you can't win kind of scenario that is often faced by everyone, women especially, but men too. That no matter what you do, there will absolutely be people who don't think what you do is appropriate, so you kind of just have to do what you want to do.
Oh yeah, I delete so many comments off my TikTok. I understand that one. I get a lot of hate, and all I'm doing is sitting here talking about stories. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's funny when it came to go because whenever we first started the social media journey, I was doing writing advice, and one of the things writers ask a lot about is, hey, should I write this story? Should I not write this story? Will this upset someone if I write it this way? Will it upset someone if I write it that way? If I include this element in my story, will I upset someone? And so I kind of came up with a standard advice that I would give them no matter what the question was about, should I write this thing I want to write, even though it might upset someone? There's actually a Turkish parable that I really like, talking about there was a caravan going through this dark tunnel. And once they got into the tunnel, it was so dark and they could tell there were these large stones under their feet. And they hear this voice booming in the tunnel that says, if you take the stones, you will be sorry. If you do not take the stones, you will be sorry. And so the people in the caravan don't really know what to do. So some of them take the stones and some of them don't. Some of them take many stones, some of them take few stones. But they make their decisions and then they go through the tunnel. When they get through the other side of the tunnel, it collapses behind them. And when they get out into the light, they see the stones are all huge, precious jewels. And the people who did not take the stones were sorry because they had no jewels, and the people who did take the stones were sorry because they didn't take more.
Oh wow, that's actually really cool. I like that.
I'm a huge fan of parables and fairy tales and legends and fables and that sort of thing. That's one of my favorite ones. And my takeaway specifically for us writers is, if you want to write it, you will be sorry if you do. You'll be sorry if you don't. You might as well take the stones.
Yeah, no, like I completely agree. So like, I write stories and fan fictions, and a lot. If I'm invested in it, I'll write a fan fiction of it, and I'm only putting it on YouTube. It's not like I'm gonna make money off it or anything. I'm not harming anyone. I've got voice actors that I've got a Discord full of voice actors that want to help me out and stuff. It's really cool. I like making my own like sort of characters in worlds that already exist and things, and like I'll talk about it on TikTok and go, hey guys, there's a new video, go check it out, listen to it, blah blah. And like, okay, again, Tokusatsu, huge, massive fan of Power Rangers, Super Sentai, all that stuff. If I mention the fact that I am a grown man, I've just recently turned 26, I have a child who's 5, and I have a fiance, and then I like Power Rangers. If I mention all 4 of those things within 24 hours, I will get abusive comments because apparently you can't have all 4 things. Apparently, to the people on TikTok, you're not allowed to have a child, be in your mid-20s, be engaged to a female human being, and like Power Rangers all at once. I don't understand.
And that's actually something that I have always found super annoying, is the idea that once you get to be a certain age, you're supposed to just totally abandon everything you love. You are now over 21, you are now going to get issued your favorite football team, and you now have to drink beer, barbecue, and that gets to be your only interest. You no longer get to, you have to now forget all about comic books, video games, and everything else you've loved this entire time.
Well, so like I said, my son's really into Pokemon, and it wasn't me, by the way, whatsoever. I hate Pokemon, I promise you. So like he hasn't played the games yet; they're a bit too complicated for him right now. But we're really into the cartoon. We're watching the new one to the point. My fiance, who has never even acknowledged Pokemon, isn't watching it with us per se, but she now owns 2 Pokemon plushies of the 2 Pokemon she finds absolutely adorable, and it's just like, I'm getting this kid into Pokemon, and everyone's like, oh yeah, but he's going to get bullied. And I'm like, you do realize I talked to his teachers, right? You do realize his head mistress was my teacher in a different school. I know that woman. So if I get told that he's bullied, I'll find out why. Not only that, he has 6 friends in his class, all like the same things he do. He literally doesn't stop talking to people in class. So
Yeah,
my
and
kid's fine, thanks.
well, oh yeah, your kid sounds like he's doing fantastic because that's one thing. Again, I also think this is like an out of date kind of thinking that a lot of older people think of. Oh, you're into nerdy stuff, you must be bullied. They don't understand nerd culture has become mainstream culture. You know,
Oh yeah.
they're still thinking back in the old days where comic books and comic book characters were a weird niche thing. The thing is,
Hmm.
comic books. I was actually having this conversation with someone about how nerd culture became pop culture. And one of the things that, in the old days, if you ask the standard 20 to 30-year-old male what his favorite, kind of movie or his favorite movies were, he would have told you like various action movies and things like that, something with Sylvester Stallone in it or Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever. But now, if you ask the average 20 to 30-year-old male what his favorite movie is, you're going to get a comic book movie. You're going to get something from Marvel or something from, DC. You're going to get that because that's just the pop culture standard movies that everyone watches now. So it's kind of like Pokemon. Pokemon is liked by, and I know that you're in the UK and I'm an American. It's a little different, but I know that I'm guessing it's probably pretty similar where as far as nerdy stuff, especially like Pokemon, I mean, that's just really universal. That's most kids. That's not the weird kid anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. And it's just like I've said this before on TikTok as well. Like people have mentioned me liking Power Rangers or the fact that I've got my son into Pokemon. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me then from the comments that I've got, I've literally said this in a video. I was like, okay, so you've never watched a Disney movie. In the last 5 years, you haven't watched a Disney movie. You haven't watched a Marvel movie. You haven't watched a DC movie. You haven't watched anything related to Alien, Predator, Terminator, Ghostbusters, Matrix, or anything of the sorts. Because if you're going to diss me on that, you have to not watch anything I've just mentioned. You're
Yeah,
not allowed.
no, 100%. And that's just like you said. That's just so funny that it's that a certain type of person has decided, oh, that's a childish thing. And like I said, as far as of course, I am huge into Pokemon. Although I do have to admit, I have gotten like crazy into Pal World, which is such a funny reinterpretation of Pokemon and kind of a riff on it. So I've actually very much been enjoying that game. I'm looking forward to them kind of actually finally finishing that game. Um, but like I said, it's just any of these nerdy, like I said, Power Rangers, which I was super into. I haven't kept as much up with my Power Rangers lore. I could probably tell you a lot about the original that was out when I was a kid, but I haven't kept up with all the newest series. So that's one of my kind of like minor fandoms that I'm not hugely into. But yeah, like all my friends, all the people I know of that are at least kind of vaguely, because like I said, I'm almost 40. Everyone my age and younger is into that kind of nerdy stuff. It's just it's a lot more mainstream and normal than it used to be.
It's quite funny. I had a comment once where like someone said, oh, I feel sorry for your child being raised by a child because you're in the Power Rangers. I replied because in August, my birthday's right at the beginning of August. One of my birthday presents was there was a Comic-Con happening an hour away from my house. My friend from Cornwall came up. He slept over. He brought his family. They all stayed over. We went to this Comic-Con. I got to meet Stefan Amell, who played Green Arrow in the Arrow show. I got to meet David Yost, the original Mighty Morphin Blue Ranger, and Amy Jo Johnson, the original Pink Power Ranger. Now, I got to speak to David Yost. I didn't really get to talk to the other two, but I had to wait in line to take pictures of these actors. And Amy Jo Johnson's line, no word of a lie, was 99.9% men older than 30 / dads. I
Oh,
actually stood in line talking to two men. One of them was a 7-foot dude. No word lie, this guy was huge. He had two kids with him. One of them was in a pram, so we're talking like any age between like one to just born to I didn't really get to see the kid. And this guy is like it. He said to me that he turns 49 in a couple of months, and like this bloke's in line about to meet a Power Ranger actor, might I add. And I'm like, so you tell me I'm in the wrong, yet I'm in line with about 50 different men waiting to meet a Power Ranger actor. Just saying.
no, absolutely. And that's why my channel, I've always tried to make my channel very much towards the nerd stuff because, I mean, like I said, nerd is I'm hugely involved in like all the nerd spaces, and that's something that people really want to be able to have a place to talk about because like I said, there's so many of us, but you still do get those weird people, like you're talking about in your comments, that just have
Mhm.
this weird feeling of needing to put it down, which is just the standard internet thing of people who are deeply unhappy and thus need to put someone else down. That's actually something I've talked about how to deal with trolls and things on TikTok. And one of the things always is, okay, of course, everyone knows block, delete, move on with your life. But one of the reasons that that's so important is just to remember that these people are not doing this because their life is going great. If you
Yeah,
are
exactly.
leaving mean comments on social media, you are not a happy person. I guarantee there is not a single person who has ever left a crappy comment to another person on social media who was doing okay.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's very true. So we spoke about movies that are books that you liked. I'm curious. I need to ask you this: what's been the worst adaptation from book to movie, in your opinion?
Okay, let's see. There have been some absolutely atrocious ones. Aragorn, the first movie of Aragon. Aragon from the book to that series was really bad.
That was
Um,
so bad. That was literally the first one on my list as well. That was so bad.
I do understand there's a series coming out that might be better. At least the writer of the Inheritance series, he thinks it's going to be better. So we've got a chance with that one. Trying to think of like the worst. I mean, because don't get me wrong, most of them are bad.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm trying to think of what would be the worst of the worst. That one might be my money on for the worst one. Um, I have a weird relationship um, with the Hannibal Lecter series. I mean, Silence of the Lambs and all that. I don't know how familiar are you with horror as a just the strict horror genre. Um, but I've read the books and I've watched all the movies, and I will say that the Hannibal Rising movie, the Hannibal Rising book was not the best in that series, but the movie was just absolutely unwatchable, dreck atrocious. So that one's not the biggest delta between a really good book and a really bad adaptation, because it was an okay book, but it was an abysmal adaptation. So that might be my pick for just the absolute. I mean, like, I would never watch that movie again. It was terrible.
Yeah, fair. See, like I said, I'm nitpicky on adaptations, and there's little things that if you're going to make a book into a film, you have to understand that there are going to be people who watch the film that have never seen the book or read the book or even know it's a book, hence, like me and Percy Jackson. And there are
For sure.
certain details, like, okay, I'm one of these people that, yes, I've watched the Twilight movies, but the books
Mm,
aren't actually that bad. The books are actually pretty decent compared to the films. And there's
mm.
this, and I'm gonna sound like a big weirdo for the next 50 seconds. But there is a scene, I can't remember which film it might be in, like, because they split the last book into two. I don't know which one of the two it is. But Bella's now a vampire, and Alice hands her a pair of contact lenses. And in the film, she says to Bella, "Put these in. Your dad's gonna notice you have red eyes." But there's a whole section that they missed from the book. In the book, she says that exact line, but there's another line that follows, which I believe they should have added in because it's a cool little detail about the vampires. Alice tells Bella in the book, you have to change them every couple of hours because your eyelids produce an acid that can melt away the plastic, which means your dad is going to see your red eyes within the next 3 hours. But they never put that in the film.
Yeah,
And I'm like, that's such a good little detail about the vampires, which, by the way, they don't explain much about.
the Twilight is such an interesting story, and I agree that little details like that are what add to a lot of the interest and make something a lot more um, a lot more depth to it. Adding things that aren't necessarily vital are still important because they add depth to the story. Twilight is really fascinating. I have a because of course Stephanie Myers, who wrote it, is a Mormon, and I have a lot of friends who are Mormons, and Mormons are an interesting culture. They're kind of their own thing, and the thing is they have their own mythology. And one of my friends pointing something out to me that I thought was absolutely fantastic is because as vampires, the Twilight vampires seem really weird, right? I mean, you can't really point to another vampire that's anything like a Twilight vampire. I mean, they just seem really strange as vampires.
Yep.
And then pointing out that if you were raised a Mormon, what Mormons believe, because Mormons are very different than kind of what you might consider your rank and file Protestant Christianity. They're very different. And what a Mormon believes an angel is like is very much what Stephanie Myers described a vampire as. So she kind of took Mormon angels, vampired them up a tiny bit, and that's really what she put in the book. So once you know that, Twilight makes a ton more sense.
Yeah, there's so many like little details in books to films that like really niggle me. So like they've just did a Netflix adaptation to a book series called Uglies, and the first book's been turned into a film. And I'm just going to quickly explain Uglies for those who don't know. Uglies is a book series where you are born and raised and you are deemed ugly. And when you hit, I think it's your 16th birthday. I could be wrong. Maybe 18th. It's one of them two. You get taken to a city of some kind, and then you become pretty. Basically, you go from normal to like think like Botox, makeup, and all this sort of stuff. And the main character is the character who breaks that cycle. And there's 4 books in the series. They're really good, really interesting. Takes a lot of, gives you a lot of thoughts about like how celebrities kind of like altered, Botox, fake implants, and things like this to make themselves look, air quote, better, and things like this. It definitely gets you thinking, and Netflix has adapted it. It only came out recently, and I told my mother, who actually got me into the Ugly books, and she sent me a voice message of her ranting for 7 minutes straight, which was hilarious. And I'm tempted to watch it just to nitpick, because I'm really curious to see what they left out and what they put in.
Oh yeah, I'm also a fan of the Uglies book series, and I haven't watched the series, the Netflix series yet. I'm almost certain they're going to miss the entire point.
Yeah, no, they literally are. Yeah, that's right.
Because there's a distinct message, and it's not like it's hidden in it about conformity and uniformity and the control that society exerts over people and why they do the things they do. It's very much, even though the plot is incredibly different than Hunger Games, it is spiritually very the same as Hunger Games, and kind of what it's trying to say about society. It's very, very, very similar. But yeah, I loved Uglies, Pretties, Specials. Specials is actually my favorite book in that series. I adored Specials.
Yeah, same. Specials is really good. Yeah, I agree.
But no, I'm relatively sure that they're going to completely miss the entire point of what the book is trying to say. I will say that I'm actually really pleased that in Hunger Games, they managed to not miss the point. The Hunger Games movies, while very different than the books, and they definitely made some decisions. Some were good, some were bad. They were definitely decisions. Overall, I feel like they kept the message, which, the woman who wrote them, that's one of her things, is she has very strong opinions about what she was trying to say with her books. And I feel like they kept that with them. That's also why she's one of the few writers who keeps coming out with these new sequels, like she is coming out with the new prequel about one of the previous Hunger Games. And if it was anyone else writing it, I would go, okay, money grab, not interested, move on. But with her, she only does that if she has very specific messages to get out. So with her, I'm actually very interested to see what her next thing's going to be.
Yeah, I agree. They did Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I believe that I haven't read that book, but I saw the movie with my fiance. Strangely enough, she's into Hunger Games, which still baffles me to this day. We went to go see it in the cinema, and I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was actually very good. I think it actually held really well. And so that's made me want to read the book now, because I know the book will be better anyway. But like, Hunger Games it's one of those ones where I believe they could have done better, but they did an okay job. If that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I'm in, because I am actually a big fan of the Hunger Games books, and I completely agree with you that it was good. It definitely could have been better. What's funny is I actually use the Hunger Games as a example of how to write a good female character.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that's true. That's true.
and for a very specific reason, it's not the only way to write a female character, but it is a way, and I think it really illustrates people. Because one thing I mentioned after I read the first Hunger Games book, and because I didn't read again until I was a little older, and I was talking to my wife about it. I said, you know what's really interesting? In the first book, if you took and swapped the pronouns and just called Katniss a he, Peeta a she, Gale a she, just change those, just change, not even the names, because the names are unisex, it would still make sense.
Yeah, that's very true.
If
Yeah, that they do a good job that. Yeah.
if Katniss was a dude, Peeta was a girl, of course it would be kind of interesting because one of Peeta's characteristics is that he's very strong, so he would be the very strong baker's girl, but that's a trope that works. I feel like that would have been really, that the fact that you could do, not even saying we need a book like that, I'm not saying you should, but the fact that you could means that's why people read Katniss and can just tell she's a fantastic character. Everyone loves Katniss as a character. But the reason why is because she wrote her as a real person, not as a strong female character, where they artificially try to take a woman doing, things that they think are what a woman should do, and then artificially make her strong. My wife reads a whole lot of fantasy. She probably reads more fantasy than I do. I like fantasy, but she reads a lot of it. And one of the tropes that you often see is the female assassin character who is portrayed as being a total badass. And then every time she gets in a fight, she gets her butt kicked. Where they talk a lot about how badass she is and then never show her actually being a badass. And I feel like that's because they're spending so much time trying to make a quote-unquote strong female character instead of just writing a strong character who also happens to be female.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Like, like the movies are decent. I feel like I can't remember if it's the second book or the third book, but in one of the books she has trouble hearing in one of her ears due to one of the Hunger Games. I believe it's the second one, which doesn't affect her shooting with her bow and arrow, but it does waver her at first. She has to learn how to do it half deaf. And like they didn't put that in the film at all. Not really. Like they didn't really mention it at all. Which I understand why they didn't. Like there's little things like in the second book and film, it's a clock. The whole arena's a clock, and certain things happen. And in the book, they go hard into that. They explain it more. There's like a whole bunch more conversations about it. Katniss, like her realizing it's a clock. When they realize it's a huge thing. In the film, it's like 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, I can kind of see why you didn't drag that on. It would have been nice to have a bit more explanation, but I can kind of see why you didn't like go on and on about it. Is the little girl who dies, Rue, right? Yeah. Yeah, that affected Katniss until way into the end of the last book. That traumatized her. That's not really. It gets brought up in the films, yeah, but it's not as traumatic for the film version, if that makes sense. In the books, that haunts her to like the very last, like the end of the book, like the end of the series of books. Like that traumatizes Katniss. And they mention it a couple times in the films, but don't show how it affects her. But again, I can kind of see why it would have been nice to, but like it's a solid set of films. And I'm curious to see what else she comes up with. Like you said, she's very very specific on what she writes. She isn't just going to write a book for the sake of writing it. She isn't going to write a book because the fans want it. She wants to write what she's going to write, and she sticks to her guns as well, which I like.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, I just thought of an answer to a question that you had asked before, that an adaptation that I think, kind of did well/bad. This weirdly fits into like both answers, I think. Are you familiar at all with the Dresden Files?
Slightly, not massively.
Short version for everyone listening is that the Dresden Files is urban fantasy with supernatural creatures and wizards living along modern world kind of thing, and the character is a magical detective named Dresden. And the thing is, I want to love that series so much, but the writing I hate the main character so bad. He's whiny. This is a guy who is portrayed as a wizard who is very old and very powerful and has been through war and all this kind of stuff, and yet at a point someone is trying to kill him and he kills them. in self-defense, and then he has this entire moral just dilemma about it. When I'm like, okay, surely this cannot be the first time this has ever come up for you, where clear-cut self-defense has come up, and you're like having this entire whiny, just dramatic moment about it, and it's just not. And I don't get me wrong, I'm not saying those sort of things shouldn't have a certain moral weight, but he's just a very the way we see his internal monologue, I just can't get behind the character. There was a TV series about it that bore literally no resemblance to the book. If I showed you both, you probably, and didn't tell you that the main character shared a name, you probably would never even realize they were the same thing. Yet I actually probably like the TV series more than I liked the books, because he's, again, not quite as whiny and just self-absorbed and self-obsessed. I will say that the book series has a comic book series that I started reading and realized that as comic books, it's infinitely better because we don't get any of his internal monologue, so I don't have to listen to him whine. So it's actually a fantastic TV series. It's a fantastic comic book series. I wouldn't recommend the books.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Again, kind of Stephen King kind of falls into that sort of like thing, isn't it? Like, the It movies, holy crap, they're good. I really enjoyed the way that it was portrayed. I actually enjoyed the old ones, and I actually quite enjoyed the newer ones too. The ones that came out in the 2010s. They're not too bad. But like reading Stephen King is just terrible.
Yeah.
So,
I also love the It movies. I can just tell we share a lot in common with the things we're into, because I also like them and I also liked them both. I actually feel like the Pennywise, the clowns in the two different ones are equally good. I just feel they're very different. They're a very different kind of monster.
yeah.
Like, I feel like the old Pennywise, the Tim Curry Pennywise from the original series, he's more of a like personified devilish kind of character. Like his is more like an evil person, whereas I feel like the Skarsgård Pennywise from, of course, the more recent movies, that he's almost more like an animal, like a beast, including he's trying to pretend to talk and pretend to act like a human, but like you see when he loses focus, he just kind of becomes a slathering monster. And I really think those are two really different interpretations, and I adore them both.
Yeah. So see, again, I've watched the originals, but I didn't grow up with, I'm 26, so like the originals came out before I was born. I didn't watch them until I was mid-teens, so by the time I actually watched them, the films, I'm not going to use the word outdated, but like, there were things in my teenage head, air quotes, better looking than those films. I wouldn't say he's scary, but I can see why he would have been. Whereas the new one, again, I don't think he's scary, but in the new one, I think they did a good job. Yes, okay, it's still based off the book, but the way that they portray Pennywise and the way that he looks and acts and stuff is more, I guess what I'm looking for is modernized in the time frame that it came out, if that's making any form of sense.
No, for sure. I can definitely see that.
I think Pennywise from the first set of the first film, I think he kind of fits into the same sort of like horror that they try to do with the original Friday the 13th, the original Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that, where the newer duo, I think they tried to play it off as more kids are different, it's a different generation, it's a different, people find different things scary, etc., etc. But I enjoyed them. I think all the films are good in their own aspects. Do they have flaws? 110%. But they're a fun ride to watch. You're not gonna watch them and go, well, that was shit. Or, they're good films.
One thing I will say that is weirdly the weakness of both the older one and the newer one is the kids, and their story is fantastic, and all the weak points are in the adults. Like, once they're adults is when we really, like, the adult characters are nowhere near as interesting as the younger characters. I also feel like in the new series, like, they kind of forgot that this is supposed to be a grown-up version of that kid. Like, you can't really look at them and see the kid that they were.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
that's very true. I did find it hard to believe that some of these adults were the kid characters, if that makes sense. Like they didn't translate very well. Some of them, anyway. Um,
well, my,
so
my
yeah,
biggest peeve character with that is Beverly Marsh, the girl, and
yeah,
because the actress they had was so fantastic, and the character of that character Beverly was just so like strong and so good in the and when she's a kid, and then she kind of just becomes generic female number three once she's an adult, and it really lost the plot there for me because I'm like, oh come on, you put so much work into making her interesting as a kid, and I feel like a lot of that was wasted once she became an adult.
yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I agree with that. 110%. And I feel like when it comes to movies, and not just adaptations, but movies in general, if you're going to have kid characters and then at some point they're adults, I do feel like not many films or TV shows, whatever, very rarely they can make it believable that hey, this kid is this adult. They are the same character. Very rare you can actually find a TV show or film, whatever, that portrays, hey, this is a kid, this is an adult, they're the same person, and it's believable. I'm actually trying to think of um, any form of kid actor who also has. Okay, so another example of kid to adult that doesn't make any sense, and this is not exactly the character aging, but Shazam. Shazam's a really good film, but Billy Batson as a kid does not seem like the same character as he's an adult.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't get me wrong, I'm a huge I love Marvel and DC. I can't pick one or the other. A lot of people ask me that. I can't pick. I love both. But the DCEU, whatever the fuck it was called, was not good. But Shazam, I did like. And I'm sorry, they do not seem like the same person.
No, and the thing is, that's actually an interesting, him as Shazam versus him as the kid. That's actually an interesting thing we do in movies sometimes, where we have one actor trying to pretend to be another actor in their body, and there's some actors who are really, really good at that, and there are some actors who are really, really bad at that. One of the weird ones that I saw that I thought did a really good job with it was in Jumanji, where Jack Black was trying to pretend to be the teenage girl. Weirdly, did a good job.
Honestly, no, that right. Okay, so I'm a big Jack Black stan. I love Jack Black. He's one of my favorite actors. When he did that character, he's the young girl and he's the avatar for the girl. Not only was that funny, but it was actually almost believable. Like that was actually generally really good. And for a guy who plays comedies, he doesn't do a lot of very serious roles. He's a very big comedic actor, and in person, it's very easy to tell that he's a very fun guy, very positive person, etc., etc. That really showed his acting ability.
No, absolutely. And that is one of the tests of acting is where can we show you a different actor and then have this actor mimic them believably? That's a really difficult thing to do, and when they do pull it off like he did, it's really impressive.
Yeah, a lot of the time is what I find is if I think TV shows have it worst when they have to like either like do body swap episodes or they do it where like hey this person's now in like this person's body. One thing that always make me laugh. Have you ever watched Smallville?
Yes.
So in season 2 of Smallville, Jor-El basically tells Clark about his time on Earth. He spent a couple weeks on Earth when like it was back in like 1970 something or other, and the actor for Clark Kent played his father, and the actress for Lana Lang played a human woman that Jor-El fell in love with, and whatever, kind of like a Romeo and Juliet type of storyline episode. They cannot act any different than they normally do. It is so unbelievable. I love Smallville. It's one of my favorite TV shows. I love both those actors, but when they're acting as Jor-El and this human woman that he falls in love with, it honestly just seems like it's Clark Kent and Lana Lang. It's no different.
Yep.
Like it's like no different at all. I think the only time I in Smallville that they did a whole body different thing or whatever. So they brought Bizarro into it because Tom Welling, the guy who plays Clark Kent, he played Bizarro, and he actually did a very good job. You can actually believe that Clark Kent and Bizarro are two very different characters. He acted very sly, very like mischievous and things, and they actually did a whole episode where you think it's Clark. It literally, Clark is with Lana. Clark's saving the day. He's being a superhero, and then right at the last second, his face glitches in the sunlight, which is how they portrayed Bizarro for some weird reason. And it's Bizarro the entire time. And honestly, watching that for the first time, I thought it was Clark Kent. I honestly thought that was Clark, but no, it's actually Bizarro the entire time. I was like, dude, that is some good acting ability. Why couldn't you done that back in season 2 when you pretended to be Jor-El?
Exactly.
Like, what did you learn in the last 2 years? You know. So when it comes to, you said video games. As a big gamer, I'm very curious. What sort of like games you play? Favorite games. I want to know.
Oh yeah. The thing is, I'm pretty varied. I like all different kinds of games. Probably my favorite genre is like survival crafting games. So, like I said, Pal World being kind of the Pokemon survival crafting game is one that I really like right now. I've also played Subnautica, which I really enjoy. No Man's Sky, which is kind of survival crafting. It's kind of Subnautica in space. That one's actually really good too. Conan Exiles, which is a very adult version of a survival crafting game. I like. Um, but also all types. Like one type that I had never really been into was the online shooters before, like Call of Duty. But some of my friends got me into it so we could play together, and I liked it okay. But actually, that's how I got into Helldivers because I liked the cooperative aspect where I could get on with my friends and play a shooter, but it wasn't playing against other people because of course we're 9 to 5ers. We have things to do. We don't have time to put a lot of time into getting really good at a video game. So I got into Helldivers that way. Like I said, I haven't gotten it yet. I'm very excited to get into Space Marine 2. So those type of games I'm actually really big into. Also like I'm also into like the more classic like strategy games like Civilization. I'm very excited that the new Civ game is coming out and it's being narrated by the actress who plays Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones. Super excited for the new Civ game. Anything in that kind of, I played StarCraft 2 competitively back in the day, not that much anymore. Love StarCraft, which is not a surprise if I like Warhammer because StarCraft was something that a lot of people don't know is StarCraft was originally going to be a Warhammer 40K game, but they lost the rights. So sometimes people joke about StarCraft being intellectually, legally different Warhammer 40K with Space Marines and all that kind of stuff. So that's another one of my favorites. I'm pretty broad. There's very few games I'm not at least somewhat interested in, but those are probably some of my kind of favorites for right now. Also, I kind of recently got back into Diablo. Because that's just a great Zen game where you just walk around, hit the same button over and over again and kill demons. So that's a great one too, and they're coming out with a DLC for that. So those are some of the ones I'm big into right now.
Yeah, that's very cool. Helldivers. I haven't really played it much recently, but me and my friends really got into that. We play a lot of like shooting games and games that we can just kind of dive into and it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't take a whole chunk of time to play. It doesn't, it's not hard to play or anything. And we're always trying to find new games to play together because there's 3 of us. So like any game that like, you can kind of just dive into, no pun intended, it kind of helped. So when Helldivers first came out, James sent me the trailer. I was like, it seems okay. I mean, it might not be my type of game, but I'll give it a go. We both started playing it, and then our friend Anthony was like, well, if you two are going to play it, I may as well just buy it and join in. And I think some of the funniest moments ever when it comes to gaming between the 3 of us has been on Helldivers because you can hurt your teammates. Like the friendly fire is just you can't turn off. You can hurt your teammates. You can kill each other. And so like James tried to be a sniper and ended up killing me and Anthony just like 1,000 times, just headshot on us because he tried to snipe people in a game where it's you versus hordes of bad guys. And then there was a time where I summoned a minefield, and so I've put all these mines down, and it's randomized. This device just shoots mines everywhere, and I've put it behind us, off just off this cliff. We're still on this little edge, and we've got to wait for the ship to come get us. So I've put all these mines behind, just in case the robots decided, hey, let's sneak attack them. So I've put them there, and Anthony and James decide, hey, let's jump off the cliff so we have more range. Not knowing that I put the mines down there, I then get knocked off the cliff, so all three of us just die and lose the match too. And we're like, oh fuck! But it was really funny at the same time. We've definitely had some laughs during Helldivers. It's definitely been rather amusing.
No, for sure. We've had some of the same things because that is the friendly fire is one of the great things about Helldivers. Oh, and one thing I'll add for games I'm really into and excited about coming up is I'm a giant fan of any kind of RPGs. So big fan of Dragon Age and Mass Effect and all those. And one of the things I'm very excited about, but you want to talk about adaptations that I have very mixed feelings about, is the new Dragon Age Veilguard coming out. Oh my God, this has been a roller coaster. This has been like crazy because I'll see something that looks horrible, then I'll see something that looks good, then horrible, then good, then horrible, then good. I'm just going to have to play it and hope for the best because I keep getting my emotions jerked around because I'll keep seeing things that like horrify me, and then I'll be like, okay, but that looks good.
Yeah. So like one of the I don't know if it's 100% confirmed, but one game series that I've just got into, and it's an old game series. I wasn't an Xbox player. I grew up on the PlayStation. I've always been a PlayStation kid, but my friend sold me his Xbox, and I've been playing Gears of War. And Gears of War, I've never played them before. I've decided I've just finished number 3. I've got to do the DLC to number 3. Absolutely loving it. Fantastic games. I can't believe I still think Xbox is the weaker console, but that's a different conversation. And it's because of my friend James I'm playing them, and even in my video I've recorded the whole time I played it. It's all on YouTube for people to watch, and I even say in every video I'm playing this because of my friend James, and we talk about it all the time. Every time that I record, I'll message him going, oh my God, this just happened, and things like this, and it was just such a good time. And apparently Netflix is adapting it into films. And I'm sat there headbutting the table because I'm now so emotionally invested into the Gears of War franchise, and so much stuff happens, so much traumatic stuff, especially number 2 and 3. And it's just like, you are not going to betray that very well. The whole point of the Gears of War characters they are big, they're muscly, too literal shred through monsters made out of flesh with chainsaw guns. That they can take a punch and they lose each other, they lose family member. One character has to kill his own wife and things like this. It's emotional to these big and they're just not going to be able to capture it. I don't care. Netflix is not good at adaptations. I have no faith in it, and they're going to ruin Gears of War for people.
I think you're probably right. One thing I will say, since it's funny that you mentioned Gears of War, and the fact that since you like Gears of War and you like Helldiver, you definitely are going to need to get Space Marine 2, because the literal description of it I've heard everyone use is it's Gears of War meets Helldivers.
Yeah, so with Space Marine, I haven't really gotten into the series. My friend James is kind of into the lore, and when he saw the gameplay, he messaged me and, dude, we need a new game to play. Would you get Space Marine? I was like, I don't know. And then he said to me that it kind of has a similar feel to Helldivers, where you can work together and stuff. And I was like, do you know what, dude? Just for you, yeah, I'll get it. It gives me something to play. And our friend Anthony keeps saying, go, oh no, I'm not gonna get it. Guarantee now he will. He see both of us play it and go, yeah, all right, I'll get it. But yeah, I'm gonna get. I may not pre-order it. I'm very finicky on what games I pre-order, but I'll definitely get it when it comes out.
Yeah, I don't like doing pre-orders either, and it kind of in the same way that you described, how chunky they are and how big and just powerful they are in Gears of War. And I'm so glad they used that gameplay for Space Marine, because Space Marines canonically are 8 to 9 feet tall transhuman super soldiers wrapped in enough power armor that it's essentially a small spaceship. And so making them feel just big and chunky and powerful, that's the only way you were going to communicate that in a game, and it sounds like they did a great job. I also haven't played it yet, but I've watched so much gameplay and I'm super stoked for it.
Yeah, See, there was a state of play the other day, Sony state of play,
Mhm.
that me and my friends tuned. It's actually the first time we just sat on Discord and just watched it, and there's not many that grabbed my attention, to be honest.
Mhm.
They're doing another Dynasty Warriors, which I'm a huge fan of the Dynasty Warrior games. If anybody doesn't know what that is, basically, they've taken Asian history and turned it into a hack and slash where you are one person kicking the crap into like 1,000 people at once. It's so fucking good. And they're doing an origin story, and I'm like, yes! And it looked like graphically looks amazing. That comes out in January. They're giving Ghost of Tsushima a second game, and to be honest, I couldn't be more fucked. I couldn't be asked for that. I have this mentality, and this is going to sound really stupid. I have this mentality where if something gets so overhyped, so overdone, I automatically don't like it.
I absolutely struggle with that as well. My wife always jokes that I have hipster in my blood, that if anything is too mainstream, I can't like it. So I do get where that comes from. I really struggle with that. It's like whenever anyone asks me what kind of bands I like, I'm always picking these really weird, obscure bands. And my wife's like, just pick someone from America. And I'm like, no.
Well, it's like, don't get me wrong, I do like the things. It's like, okay, Power Rangers. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is the first season. I understand that it's the Power Ranger season for a lot of people. People grew up on that season. But in my eyes, they've overdone it, and Mighty Morphin is not in my top 5 favorite seasons of Power Rangers. Because it's just so overdone. I'm just like, no. Like, Digimon is the same. I love the original adventures. That is what I grew up on. But because it's so overdone, I'm just like, I prefer Zero 2 now. Like, it's just like, no, I'm good. Like, I think that's why I'm enjoying the new Pokemon cartoon or anime, should I say. Ash Ketchum isn't in it. He left. Which he left terribly. They ruined that. But they got new characters in now. And because it's new characters and there's a whole crew of characters that know what they're doing, but they've made 2 new characters and they don't know what they're doing. You know, they're catching Pokemon for the first time. They're making mistakes. To me, that's fucking refreshing as all hell. I'm loving it. My son's liking it too, but he's looking at it for a 5-year-old's perspective. But as a story writer myself, I'm loving this. I love the new ideas that they've come up with. The fact that they're jumping around all different generations of Pokemon. They're not just focusing on the new generation. The main bad guy Out of the main bad guys, I think 2 of them are using 2 of the new generation. The rest of them, there's like 5 villains altogether, are using Pokemon from all different types of generations. So it's not focusing on the one new generation either. And I just like it. It's not Ash. It's nothing to do with like, going through the gyms or whatever. It's nothing like the games, and I'm here for it. I think it's really cool.
Oh no, absolutely. I'm also, what's funny is I kind of have, when it comes to Pokemon, I kind of have the thing where the whole Ash storyline, I'm kind of the same way, that I'm kind of over that. That's not really the thing for me. Although the original 150 Pokemon, that will always be my favorite generation of Pokemon. I actually feel like that's kind of the superior roster. But I don't like I'll take the newer characters and the older Pokemon. Can we get a mix like that?
Well, see, it's funny you say that, right? So Nintendo and Capcom and Game Freak and whoever else has dubbed their toes in Pokemon before, they always make Pikachu, Eevee, and well, now Eevee. Eevee never used to be, but Pikachu and Charizard are their babies. Pikachu and Charizard always get everything. Charizard is the Pokemon that has every new mechanic. Every single thing he will get. Charizard is the Pokemon.
Mhm.
Yeah, my favorite starter Pokemon's Blastoise.
Yeah.
Because Charizard's so overdone, and I'm a fire starter Pokemon trainer. If I start a new Pokemon game, I'm automatically gonna pick fire type, whether it fucks me over or not. I'm a fire type starter. Blaziken, Typhlosion, Infernape, they're always my starter Pokemon. But I cannot pick Charmander because Charizard is so overdone. So Blastoise is now like my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon. It's just, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know if it's ADHD or not, or I don't know. It's just my brain goes, nah, nope, I'm done. Goodbye. I'm done with like the overhypeness of it. Like, so are you are you watching / into the MCU?
Yes, I haven't. I have slacked off a little on some of the very newest things that they've done. Pretty much anything after Avengers Endgame, I probably haven't kept up with as much. But yeah, love the MCU. Love of course, with Endgame, they did some things that I don't know if I will ever forgive them for. That I think really weirdly messed over some of their characters. Like I got super mad at that they did the whole thing with Hulk where he became Smart Hulk off screen. I cannot explain to you the apoplexy I had over that, where a very, very important, vital character development thing just got by the way off screen. Yeah, that messed with me. But no, totally into the MCU. Absolutely love it.
Prepare to dive into Universe 19, with many stories revolving around the Ultra Rangers, the Power Rangers, and the Kamen Riders. Joining them are the likes of the X-Men, the Avengers, and the Fantastic Four. But that is not all. You can also find stories revolving around Mega Man, Ben Tennyson, and Danny Phantom.
What do you think you're doing?
Doing the promo for Universe 19.
Okay, and you're missing all the important bits.
Which are...
Oh, I don't know. How about where people can find these stories?
Yeah, dude. Universe 19. I already mentioned that, actually.
Platforms. I'm talking about what platforms.
Oh, I see. Well, I can do
If you want to hear the tales of Universe 19, check out Power Rangers Universe 19, the podcast, for the Power Rangers, Kamen Riders, and Beetle Trooper stories. On the Marvel Universe 19 YouTube channel, you can find the Marvel stories, and the rest are spread across the following YouTube channels: Tiger Tales, Tiger Tales The Lost Stories, and Tiger Tales Game Over. Check out the ever-growing Universe 19 and all its stories.
See, I am with you. A lot of people don't like Smart Hulk as a thing, and so many people are like, oh, we should have Angry Hulk, blah, blah, blah. But my argument to that is this. What else are they going to do with Bruce Banner? Because we have Steve Rogers, who is frozen in ice for 70 years. He's a soldier. He works for S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. Also then gets fucked. He works with Avengers. They get fucked. All he does is fight. So his story concludes with having happy ever after. Iron Man is a guy who is stuck up, he's a bit egotistical. It is said in Avengers 1 by Captain America, you are not going to make the sacrifice play. So how does this story end? He makes the sacrifice play. Then we have Thor. He loses everything. His brother several times. His dad, his mum, his love of his life. He loses everything. He even fucked up. He didn't go for the head. And he's traumatized by it. And then if you watch film 4, it does actually I actually quite like how they ended Thor's storyline in Thor for Love and Thunder. Even though that film wasn't great. But with Hulk, what are they going to do? They can't keep him in the comic books. He's not an angry dude all the time. Smart Hulk is a thing. But yeah, I completely agree. They should have done it on screen. Like the fact that they were like, hey, we need some smart guy. Do we know a smart? Yeah, we know Bruce Banner. And then all of a sudden you have Hulk going, yeah, I just combined, we're just now one thing. I got my brain, Hulk's muscles, and went bam. And it's just like, hang on a minute, huh? Like, that's such a big, huge character arc, and you're going to put it in the time skip?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love that as a character arc. I'm with you. I actually love him progressing into Smart Hulk. That's one of my favorite things from the comics. I want that, but you got to earn it. I don't know if you were a fan of Game of Thrones at all, but the thing of everyone hating the ending, the only reason people hated the ending is because it was rushed. It's not that it ended that way. It's that we needed 2 more seasons to get there. Because like the thing of Daenerys, if anyone who's familiar with Game of Thrones, of course, everyone knows how it ends and why they're really mad. Because Daenerys basically makes a heel turn and becomes evil. The thing is, the seeds for that were there, but we needed 2 more seasons for it to make sense. They just rushed it. And I feel like it's kind of the same, even in a way worse with Smart Hulk. Not only did they rush it, they didn't even plant the seeds. There was no foreshadowing of that at all.
Yeah,
Just,
it just
oh, by the
jumped.
way.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up another TV show, which is not even in the same genre as Game of Thrones, but I feel like they did the same. Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I don't know if you've ever watched that comedy. But they did the same thing in that. Granted, COVID did fuck over Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It only had 10 episodes in the last season. But where they go from episode 1 of the last season to episode 10 of the last season, you can cut it very small dabbles in certain characters' decisions, but then there's massive changes in from the last episode of the previous season to the first episode of the last season. There's a character called Rosa, and she's like the biggest badass ever. Like, people are scared of her. But in the last season, she's no longer a police officer because of police brutality. Because police are brutalizing, because she's Latina. So like, people are brutalizing her, like her, you know, her race, and like, she feels objectified, and she's also bi. So like, you know, gay pride and stuff also got affected, and all this sort of things. And like, so she's now a PI, but we never see that. We never see that at all. She goes from celebrating the fact that 2 main characters had a baby at the end of 1 season to episode 1 being basically a completely different storyline for her, and it's just jumped. There's no progression. You don't get to see any of this, and you don't get to see how it affected her at all. And she's just like there now, and it's just like, well, hang on a minute. Yeah, okay, granted, they did tell some good storylines. You know, they mentioned Black Lives Matter and the police brutality and COVID and stuff, but it'd be nice to at least seen some of this, or flashbacks at least, or something. But they didn't. They just jumped it, and it's like, well, hang on a minute. Like, you just turned the biggest badass motherfucker in the show, one of the biggest female badass motherfuckers in the show, made it so she has some real life issues, but you don't show us anything. Yes, I know it's a comedy, but Brooklyn Nine-Nine did a really good job of action and comedy and real life stuff, and they just ruined this character for no reason.
Yeah, and that's such a good example. And just, it's so funny when I feel like some writers don't understand. You can have this stuff you want in your story, but you got to earn it. You have to actually have a reason for. I'm sure me and you could sit here and come up with, you know, examples for days of storylines where they did things that would have been okay if you had earned it, if you had put the time in, put the explanation in, put the foreshadowing in. But since it just came out of nowhere, it fell completely flat.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think one character in the MCU, well, in Avengers Infinity War to Endgame, that they did really good character stuff with, but I feel like it was too overshadowed, was Hawkeye, or Clint, or whatever you want to call him. He becomes Ronin. I never thought, when you're watching Avengers 1 for the first time, never in a million years did I think to myself, yeah, they'll do the Ronin storyline, sure they will. Never, ever, ever, ever. And they actually did it. Yes, okay, it was dabbled upon in the Hawkeye TV show, but not that much. But like, at least they did something with Hawkeye finally, other than revealing the fact they had like a wife and kids, because that just popped up in Avengers 2 for no reason. But it was literally like 5 minutes. He's been killing people in Japan and, like, you know, Tokyo and stuff, and then Black Widow turns up and he's like, yeah, sure, I'll come help. Like, hang on a minute, you just revealed to us that he's Ronin. You showed up him killing people, and now he's not gonna? Confused much, you know?
You know, and it's funny, speaking of Avengers and the MCU in general, and it's so funny that all the MCU movies have had like wildly diverse quality levels.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, they're huge on diversity. The main thing being the diversity of their quality levels, because some were just fantastic, and some were just absolutely, I have no idea what they were thinking, including like the Avengers, the original Avengers movie. I mean, that's almost a textbook on writing. I mean, I, as a writer, could point at Avengers and say, okay, here is the massive number of lessons you can learn from this story. Like, okay, here's how you do an ensemble cast where you take the time and make each character have their own badass moment. Because that's something in Avengers, every one of those characters gets to have a moment where you think, oh my God, they're the most badass person ever, including Black Widow, Captain America, I mean, the Hulk, everyone has their absolute where they sell you on them being a badass. And there's another thing you can really learn from Avengers that I think people who, grew up in the post-Avengers world and watched a lot of the MCU post-Avengers forget that before Avengers, Hulk was a joke.
Yep.
Hulk was not seen as this incredibly badass character that, world destroying Hulk. That the movies that had existed prior to that, I mean, they were okay movies, but Hulk was not depicted as like the biggest, scariest character in the MCU, which he kind of, in a way, is. And the thing is, so they had to sell you on that, and they did that in the movie. And there's a really cool writing trick, which I know you as a writer, whether you've ever phrased it this way, at least you probably have even used it, even if you wouldn't necessarily phrase it this way. If I want to make you, as the reader, afraid of a character or a thing, the way I get you to do that is I'm going to show you a character being afraid of that thing.
Oh, yeah,
Especially a badass character being afraid of that thing. That's like when we first meet Banner, they take Black Widow, who we've already established as badass, and we show her being afraid of the Hulk. And that communicates to us, okay, shit, he must be really scary. And they do such a good, because they basically created the Hulk from scratch, and they did such a fantastic job. I mean, like I said, Avengers is essentially a workshop on how to write these characters.
Well, not even just Black Widow. Bruce Banner himself, he literally stands there and he's like, I tried. Okay, he doesn't say I tried to commit suicide, but he said he put a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. But the way that he is acting, he's all like hunched up, his arms are all like folded into himself, and he's like, I tried to put a bullet in my mouth, and guess what? The Hulk just spat it out. But the way he's talking, it's like he hates himself. Like he talks with venom. He talks with this like angst towards the Hulk, and that even makes you think, whoa, okay, hang on, chill out, dude. Like, damn.
Oh, for sure. And that specifically.
And like that makes the scenes where, when Bruce turns up in New York and they're like, hey, I think it's time to get angry, and he just turns to Captain, he's like, well, that's my secret. I'm always angry. And then it just turns and the Hulk punches the thing. That makes that scene just so fucking good. And like, I completely agree. Like, you've got the, even the funny moments where you've got Thor and Hulk fight, and then when they're fighting in New York, they're both stood there, and Hulk just decks the Thor and just punches him flying. That's funny, but in a good way, because we've seen Thor and Hulk fight. They kind of stood equal ground. And throughout an army of aliens invading New York, Hulk's that petty. He's like, yeah, fuck, I'm gonna punch you right now. But it's comedic, and you're laughing because it not only is it funny, it makes sense. It's good comedy. But like, quite often, me and my friends are talking about the MCU, and like Robert Downey Jr. is coming back as Doctor Doom, and like, I'm done now. I'm so close to giving up. Like, the only hope I have for the next two Avengers films is the Russo brothers are coming back to direct them. That's the only hope I have, because they gave us Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, Captain America Civil War, and Captain America Winter Soldier. And like, they're just like really good at superhero films.
Oh, absolutely.
So, like, don't get me wrong, since Endgame there have definitely been good films. Spider-Man No Way Home, if you grew up on Tobey Maguire films, and that film had a good payoff, and like one of my favorite scenes, I'm assuming you've watched No Way Home?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't want to like say this scene because it's like near the end of the film. One thing it does good is, yes, it gives you Tobey Maguire, who so many people. I grew up on Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I treasure those movies. But it also gives light to the Amazing Spider-Man, who I actually enjoy those two films. I don't care what people say. I see flaws, but I do actually really enjoy the Amazing Spider-Man duo. Like, there's the scene just before they start fighting. You got the three Spider-Men talking about their foes that they fought, and like, Toby and Tom Holland are comparing aliens and the fact they fought aliens before. And Andrew just goes, "Well, I wish I had I wish I was that cool. All I get is a metal dude in a rhino suit. Like, damn. And then instead of having the new guy, Tom Holland's Peter, go, oh, no, you are amazing. You're a cool dude. No. They get Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to turn to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, who everyone has said, Tobey's better than Andrew. Why do they do that for? And get Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to turn to Andrew Garfield and go, can you stop the negativity? You're amazing. Don't doubt yourself. You are amazing. I actually teared up. I'm not going to lie to you. I sat there. I was like, holy fuck. What the hell? That scene is so impactful. It is unreal.
No, absolutely. And I feel like, whenever we're talking about movies, I feel like Spider-Man No Way Home is one of those that I would call underrated if it wasn't so highly rated by everyone and loved it. So I would say that's one of those movies that is entirely appropriately rated.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like little things like when Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man sorts out Doc Ock, Doc Ock says, Peter, how are you doing, kid? And then Peter goes, yeah, I'm hanging in there, which is taken exactly from Spider-Man 2. They literally have exactly the same conversation word for word. And it's just like, holy shit. Like, whoever came up with the script, directed the films, the whole team behind No Way Home, knew what they were doing. They sat there and went, let's do this for the fans. Let's give the Marvel fans, the Spider-Man fans, the comic book fans what they wanted. And they did. They did a really good job. Was it fantastic? No, there's definitely a few little flaws in there, especially now the result of no one remembering who Peter Parker was definitely kind of dubs a few questions. But
sure.
it's still a good film. It's one of the better films in later years of the MCU. I really like Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. Not many people did. I've spoken to a lot of people and they're like, it's, not that great, blah, blah. But I'm like, yeah, but Namor was done so well. They actually got Namor correct.
Yeah.
Like, the one scene that always gets me is the when a Black Panther, that's in the comic books too, when a Black Panther becomes a Black Panther, whoever it is, they see their ancestors. Now, they haven't done Black Panther comically accurate, but the ancestor that Shuri sees is just mind-blowing. And it literally, I sat there, my jaw on the floor. It wasn't in the trailers. Nobody knew it was coming. My jaw was on the floor when that happened. I was like, oh my god, literally, the way that Shuri's being portrayed in this film, and it was just perfect. Like, it was so good. But then we have things like The Marvels, which was a diabolical mess.
Oh, yeah. I have to say, and there's a lot that I've, as much as I really do love, overall, I love the MCU. But one thing I will say that in leaning so hard into the MCU, the joint universe concept, I do feel like they have created a giant barrier to entry. Because, like, a friend of mine, there was a movie that he thought his mom would really enjoy. And the thing is, she started to watch it, and then I think it was actually the new Agatha All Along series. And basically, he was like, before she could watch it, he had to sit here and give her a 2-hour TED talk on everything that had come beforehand. Because there's so much you need to know about all the other movies in order to watch it. And he was like, and I'm just not sure it was worth needing to learn all that just to enjoy Agatha All Along. So I do feel like, because everything is so interconnected, if you are just rolling up to these movies now, I feel like it's just really hard to approach them, because, like, okay, now you need to research the last 10, 15 years of movies in order to realize what's going on in the movie you're trying to watch.
Yeah, but also they made it in harder, because now they've introduced TV shows that you can only watch on Disney Plus. Because we have Thunderbolts. Now, I was really skeptical on Thunderbolts, but the trailer looks pretty decent. But here's the issue: to understand US Agent, you have to watch Falcon and Winter Soldier. To understand Yelena from where she is now, you're going to have to watch Hawkeye, because at the end of Black Widow, she was after Hawkeye. But if you don't watch Hawkeye, you're not going to understand why she's not going after Hawkeye. So it's like, well, hang on a minute. Not only do you have got a bunch of films to watch, you've now got a whole bunch of TV shows to watch, and it's quite funny. So, my mother has watched all the MCU. She's up to date. Mostly, she skipped a few things because she didn't like it. My stepmother, however, she had to catch up. Like Endgame had been and gone for a while until she started watching them. They caught up. They watched all the films and stuff. And then I had to live with my parents for a couple of years, for like a year and a half, a couple of years ago. And by the time they had all caught up, we were on, I want to say She-Hulk, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't watch She-Hulk, which is fine. She-Hulk wasn't great. But when we were watching it, my stepmother likes to ask me questions all the time. So we went to go see Deadpool and Wolverine. There was quite a few of us. There was like 9 of us all together, and including my parents. And if you watch Deadpool and Wolverine, going in as a Fox universe fan, you're going to understand a lot of the characters, a lot of the references, and all this sort of stuff, because obviously Fox, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and that jazz. Yeah, my stepmother's never seen any of those films. I think the only film she's seen is Deadpool 1, 2, and Logan, I think, and maybe X-Men 1, if that. So after the movie, I had to sit there for an hour and explain like half of Deadpool and Wolverine to her because she didn't understand half the references. Like, I feel like the one thing that works well for Deadpool is they introduce something in the film that's in Loki, and Deadpool literally turns to you, because obviously he can break the fourth wall, and goes, "Oh my god, it's a thing from Loki, season 1, episode 5, and literally tells you what to watch to understand it. I was like, yes, thank you. Because I guarantee now those people going in that film having no idea what the fuck was going on, because the TVA is from Loki.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that what's so funny is my biggest takeaway from the newest Deadpool and Wolverine movie is that it made me really, really, really mad. I'm never going to get a Gambit movie.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? I was happy that Channing Tatum was Gambit. I loved him in it. I think he was great. I'm really glad they got his powers fucking correct. Jesus Christ, the X-Men Wolverine movie ruined that. But like, he looked like Gambit. You know, the fact that he couldn't do the accent properly would have annoyed me if it wasn't for the fact that Deadpool didn't rip the shit into it. Deadpool literally mocks him all the time. The amount of times Deadpool goes, "I'm sorry, you're gonna have to repeat yourself," or like, actually, what Gambit just said was, and then just says exactly what Gambit just said. It was really funny. I
want to jump in as a subject matter expert here. I am from South Texas. And we are very close to the Louisiana border, and we have Cajuns here, and I am friends with Cajuns, and I also follow a lot of Cajuns online. As weird as it sounds, no, that's what they freaking sound like. That actually, surprisingly, he did. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but we're not trying to say it's perfect. But as a Cajun accent, that's respectable. I mean, especially for who they have doing it and knowing that he is not in any way Cajun. No, I mean, it wasn't a perfect nail, but I would give his Cajun accent an 8.5 out of 10.
Fair enough. Okay, fair.
They just sound weird.
What made me appreciate and want the Gambit movie was I saw an interview with Channing Tatum, and he actually said that literally days before Marvel bought Fox, they were literally talking to him about being Gambit. They literally had a script ready. Majority of the script ready. They were talking to him about the fact that he's going to have to learn certain card tricks just to make him look believable, so they don't have to like edit him doing the cards and stuff. They were talking to him about the accent. They were talking to him about the fact that like he's going to have to wear a lot of the suit, but they might better CGI some of it just so he's not sweating his ass off in the suit the entire time and things like this. Then literally within a couple of days, Marvel bought Fox, and Kevin Feige told Channing Tatum himself, "Yeah, I don't think Gambit's going to work right now. The second we're not doing the X-Men, and I don't have the balls, the encouragement, or like the money or resources to talk to the board and see if we can do a Gambit movie. Sorry, mate, you're not going to do it." And Channing Tatum's been literally crying in the corner this entire time because of it. That's what made me go, "Holy shit! The guy's been trying to do. Okay, yeah, give him his movie, man. Come on."
I have to say, I was because when I first heard Channing Tatum as Gambit, I was not excited. No, I was like BS. Now, because I had
Yeah.
heard before that they were going. When I heard Shannon, I hated the idea. I was the world's like, gee, glad we didn't get that movie. Then I saw him do the character, and oh my god, he managed to be he had the accent, like I said, very good. He managed to pull off the character's attitude, which is like, because I grew up watching the X-Men cartoon.
Yeah.
And like if you grew up watching the cartoon, then you know, like, the definition of male and female sex appeal is Gambit and Rogue. That's like the definition of the two sexiest characters ever to be animated in history. And he managed to pull that off and communicate that, and I was so here for it. And like I said, now I'm super mad he doesn't get his own movie.
Well, it's like, one of my favorite things was Logan. The fact that we had another Wolverine. I'm so glad they went with the multiverse route. I know a lot of people don't like the multiverse. Me personally, I fucking love it. I love. Granted, the MCU haven't done it properly, but I love just the concept of the multiverse in general. Mortal Kombat 1 had just got DLC and expansion pack, which plays with more multiverse, and you see a lot of the characters in the game, but they're from a different universe, and they done it really well. You actually play as there's a character in Mortal Kombat called Rain, and in Mortal Kombat 1 he's like a water mage, but you play as a different version of him where he's actually an emperor. He actually rules over his earth, but he's lost his kingdom to the main bad guy of the DLC. And it's just like, you wouldn't even say they're the same character. The only thing that makes you think they're the same character is they play exactly the same because they're both Rain, and you have to play as this character. That's it. You wouldn't say they're the same character. I love the multiverse. It's such a good concept. So when we see Wolverine back, my son's called Logan because of Wolverine. That's the reason why my son's called Logan. Not joking. That's the reason why he's called Logan. I can't wait to get him into the X-Men. When not only do we have a comic book accurate suit, not only do we have his cowl get put on at the very last minute too, the fact that he doesn't wear his cowl at all, I didn't even think they were going to do it, and then he just pulls it out of nowhere, and even Deadpool's like, hey, where the fuck have you been hiding that? So good. But he's traumatized. He is not the same Logan. He's a broken man. He is pissed off. He's failed, and he knows he's failed, and it's just like, holy crap, that was good. Like, I think that's my one of my favorite, in my top 3 favorite like versions of the Wolverine that Hugh Jackman's done. When they announced it, I remember the announcement. It was a good couple of years ago. Ryan Reynolds sat on a couch and he's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do Deadpool 3. You know, we have plans and stuff, blah blah blah. Hugh Jackman just walks behind him. He's like, hey Hugh, wanna come back as Wolverine? And then Hugh just stops and goes, yeah, Ryan, why not? And then walks off, and I'm like, oh no, you killed Logan. Like, Logan's such a good film. Don't do that. But now I'm like, yes, so good. And it's just like, you know, they brought back Human Torch, was a really nice surprise. I'm really glad that didn't get spoiled for me, because that was generally a nice surprise. That was really cool, really funny, really, really gruesome if you think about it. And like, again, adaptations. So Cassandra Nova, the villain of Deadpool Wolverine, is nothing like a comic book counterpart. Dark and twisted, yes, she is as dark and twisted. Looks-wise, looks nothing like her. The woman who plays Cassandra Nova, and this might be a hot take to some people, I may have people listening to this that I'm friends with who may judge me, I actually think Cassandra Nova is a very beautiful woman. As Cassandra Nova, I think she's gorgeous. In the comic books, she is like an ugly, wrinkly old ball bag. She is not a pretty comic book character, but the movie made her absolutely stunning. Did that piss me off at first? 110%. I was like, what are you doing? You're going to ruin her. But she was actually a very good villain. I actually enjoyed her portrayal.
Yeah, I actually thought it was quite good too. And it's one of those where I definitely think there, you know, and I'm kind of the same way with you, where I always struggle of like between, I want it to be lore accurate, but also I want the creators to have creative freedom to make good decisions that will work good for their art. And I feel like that was one of those things that, while was not lore accurate, and I definitely felt myself pull against that, on the other hand, I'm like, oh, okay, I think you earned it. You did a good job. Now, there's one, speaking of all the comic book interpretations and adaptations, there's one I'm really curious how you feel about. How do you feel about My Adventures with Superman?
Okay, So,
I had a feeling that was going to be a whole thing.
no. Okay, right.
I have a lot of feelings as well. I want to hear how you're on it.
Okay, so I have two things to say. First off, I hate Henry Cavill as Superman. I do not care what anyone says. I've actually generally argued with people. He is not Superman. I grew up reading the original Superman comics. My stepfather's uncle, one of his family members passed away, and he gave me like 100 comic books from like the 70s to 80s. There was like Beano's, DC, Marvel, and all sorts of stuff, and original Superman comics. I mean, like from the 1960s and stuff. So we're talking like old Superman comics, right? That is not Superman. I'm scared for the new Superman film, but there's a but here. I have faith in James Gunn because he's given us 3 superhero movies. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Both films are fucking fantastic. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I was generally crying in the cinema. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 tugged on my heartstrings. And The Suicide Squad, which I believe is the better Suicide Squad. If you like the first one, something's wrong in your brain cells. And I actually generally enjoyed The Suicide Squad. The good thing about James Gunn is this. He knows how to work with superheroes. He knows how to work with multiple characters on screen at once. But not only that, he's good at introducing a whole bunch of characters, making you like them, kind of explaining stuff, and making you want more of them. So if there's a second film, he can play along with them. Rocket Raccoon has been in 5 films, and we only got his backstory the 5th one. And it worked. It worked. So yes, I am scared, but I have faith in James Gunn.
I am excited for the new Superman movie as well. I think that we may actually get a good interpretation this way. Also, I love Henry Cavill, but I do not love... I mean, I love him as an actor, but I do not love him as Superman. I think he's a good actor, but I agree he's not a good Superman.
I like him as an actor. I love the fact one of my favorite actor stories of all time is how he missed the call that told him he was playing Superman. He was too busy playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah. Now,
that's fantastic. That's hilarious.
I think I did miscommunicate my question a little bit, though. Specifically, I was asking about My Adventures with Superman, the new animated series about him and him as a younger reporter with Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen.
Okay, again, I haven't watched all of it. I am getting there. I'm also watching the last season of Young Justice at the same time because I still haven't caught up on that. So I'm bouncing between the two, so my brain doesn't go, yeah, we can't watch it. So I'm treating it's like jumping medication. I'm doing it. What I've seen so far, I'm not going to say it's terrible because, again, there have been worse versions of Superman. But I can kind of see why they're doing it because you have shows like Invincible, who's a teen superhero. We have Spider-Man is getting a new, we have the X-Men again and things like this. I can kind of understand. I don't think I think I need to watch all of it to 100% my opinion. It's like the new Batman animated show that came out on Amazon Prime. I haven't watched all of that yet, and people are bitching about certain things like Penguin's a female. And I'm like, yeah, but as long as Penguin's done right, does it matter?
Well, I want to get to the Batman cartoon because I actually have some strong opinions about that, where I think the people who are mad that Penguin is a woman don't understand why Penguin is a woman. But I want to... because there's a very specific thing they're doing where this is actually set in the 20s, kind of the roaring 20s period. And Penguin is specifically referencing an American roaring 20s mobster character called Ma Barker.
Yes, that's true.
Who was the mother of a crime family. So they are meshing her that character with Penguin. So it's not like, we just gender swapped Penguin for no reason. They gender swap Penguin because they are referencing him back to a character that happens to be female. So I actually really like that. But to circle back to My Adventures with Superman, because I actually do have some strong, interesting feelings on this. I feel like as a Superman, they made some real weird choices, like with his powers and such.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
where like he doesn't necessarily have all his powers yet, where his powers are developing slowly over time, and that's kind of not canonical. He had them from the time he was a child, so
Yeah, no, I need to just pull up real quick. I think that's one of the reasons why I liked Smallville so much, because yes, okay, he developed powers at, well, okay, Tom Welling's like 20 something playing a teenager, but I think he's going on 15 in the first episode. Like, he's around about the 15 age. By the time the series ends, he's like, in his mid 20s. And it's I want to say season 9 when he gets his microscopic vision, which he only ever used twice. But still, the thing is in that show, though, is there's 2 flashbacks where he's a kid and he's like lifting up something stupidly heavy, and then both Jonathan and Martha have told him stories of like, oh, you ran so fast when you were like 10 and you were like on the other side of Metropolis and I had to come get you or something. They told him stories and stuff, so he does grow up with his abilities. Yes, he's a bit late, but he's not Superman yet. Like, I kind of see where you're going with that. Yeah, okay, it's a bit weird, he's Superman, and yet he's still trying to get his powers, but yet he's meant to have all his powers by the time he's Superman. That's the whole point of him being Superman. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. It's like Batman trying to be Batman without the fear of bats.
Yeah, it's or where, okay, Batman is Batman, but he's still trying to learn martial arts. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's kind of weird. But that being said, because that's kind of one of my critiques of it. But overall, I actually really like the series, like, a lot. And one of the reasons why is because they have a believable Clark and Lois romance that I actually buy. For one, I buy Lois as a character that I would want to date, that she's actually a cool female character. Whereas the majority of Lois's have not been like really good characters that you would actually want to date. And I never found their romance believable. Smallville being an exception. They did a good job in that one too.
See, I think this goes for a lot of superheroes, not just Superman. That's, I think, one of my main issues about adapting a comic book into a movie, is the fact that a lot of the female roles that aren't a superhero are really bland and just there to be saved. Like, okay, I love Tom Maguire's trilogy. Love it, love it, love it. But all 3 films have MJ literally there just to be saved at the end. That's literally it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, in the comic books, there's so much more than that.
Oh, absolutely. Whereas Lois in this one, she's a full-fledged character. She's an interesting character. She's an adorable character. You can see why he wants to date her. And they put the effort into their romance together, into their relationship. And it's one of the reasons I reference the powers coming in. Yes, maybe that's not my favorite way to do it, but it does lead to some amazing moments, like at one point where there's a giant robot thing about to shoot her. He jumps in front of her and stops the bullet. And she asks him, well, how did you know you were bulletproof? And he says, I didn't. I just knew you weren't.
Yeah,
oh my God. That gave me feelings all the way up and down my body,
Like, see, okay, that moment there, and okay, this is a really weird topic to talk about. Again, I have to bring up Smallville. That moment there is very similar to what they did with Clark's heat vision. Again, Smallville was weird. In season 2, episode 4, the only reason why I know that is because, yes, it's a weird episode, but I do like it. Clark starts having, how do I put this? Hormonal emotions, I shall word it. And that triggers his heat vision because he's getting hot. His body's overheating because of his hormones. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's weird, but it's actually kind of clever at the same time.
Oh yeah.
Again, with My Adventure of Superman, he's thinking to himself, I need to get there fast. I need to protect this person. And his body's just like, okay, well, guess what? We have a power that allows you to protect people. It's like its brain natural response is to jump in the way. So that's why it triggers that ability. It's clever. Yes, it's weird, but it's kind of clever.
Yeah, and like I said, yes, they made some weird decisions with his powers, but since they use them really well, I don't mind. It's like, because and like I said, they really make their romance together really, and like there's those times where you see them look at each other and blush, and just they sell me the relationship between those two characters in a way that I feel most Superman media doesn't do. So overall, I really like My Adventure with Superman.
Okay, since we're on the top of DC, I have 2 questions. I need to ask one before I ask the other. The first question is, what's your opinions on the adaptations that we've had of the Joker? I'm just
Okay.
curious.
That's a fantastic question. I got to gear up for a thing here because that's a complicated question. And and the thing is, almost all of them. I want to be clear. I mean, almost. I feel were really, really good in their own way. The only Joker that I have felt that I just didn't love, and even then, I feel like it's kind of more okay than some people do, but I still don't love it, is Jared Leto's Joker. That one I feel is the most unsuccessful Joker of all times. But every other oh, go ahead.
No, because you mentioned Jared Leto. I agree. The thing that made me think it's not Jared Leto, it's the writers and the directors, is
100%.
Is the Snyder Cut. Because at the end of the Snyder Cut, we have an end credit scene where Batman talks to Deathstroke and Joker, and it's Jared Leto's Joker. And he's sat on this car, and he looks slightly different, and he's laughing. He's like, well, I guess you need my help now, don't you? And it's just like, if he got given the right tools, like a lot of the Joker actors, like, Heath Ledger, fuck me, he actually, like, almost went insane being the Joker and things like this. Phoenix, the guy who plays Joker in the Joker, he became anorexic just to be the Joker. He sat there for months on end going through, like, I can't remember what it's called, laughter something therapy, because of the laughter thing that Joker does in the films and things like that. I don't think Jared had the chance to do that. If he got given the tools, the right writers, the right directors, I think he could be a good Joker. I'm not saying great, I'm saying good. Sorry,
and I agree with that 100%. I agree that it absolutely was not his fault as an actor. It was the role and what they were trying to do with it. Totally agree.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I will say every other Joker I have kind of loved in their own way. I mean, all the way back to the Romero, Adam West Joker, that Joker was actually really good, for the time, because that was actually an actor who normally played like the heartthrob, sexy romance characters. And so the way he did the Joker, especially in that series with that Batman, was just brilliant. Then, of course, I really grew up with Mark Hamill doing the animated voice of Joker from the animated series, who is still probably the best Joker of all time. I probably knew him as Joker way before I knew him as, Luke Skywalker. And then, and then just on and on with all the, Heath Ledger, of course, was really fantastic. Even from the 90s Batman, what's his name?
Jack Nicholson.
Nicholson, again, for that Batman, for that series, I think he was spot on. He was exactly who they needed, and on and on. And I feel like I said, kind of with the exception of Leto, because I feel like they let Leto down, but I feel like every Joker has been the right Joker for their movie, series, or whatever. So I've actually been a pretty big fan of literally all the Jokers.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I said, if Leto had the right tools and stuff behind him, I think he could have been great. Heath Ledger, to me, is one of my favorite Jokers. I love The Dark Knight. Mark Hamill, I love the fact that he has said, and he's actually had to say it a few times, which I find disgusting because people just keep badgering him about it. Because we lost Kevin Conroy, he has said that he's never going to play Joker again because his Joker died when Kevin also died, which I found so beautiful and so touching. And people keep nagging him to play the Joker, and he said, look, the Joker that you love doesn't exist anymore. He's actually, I think it was on Instagram or something, he did a video with Tara Strong, who voices Harley Quinn a lot of the time, and she sat on his lap, and she's like, oh, put in like in the Harley Quinn voice, and he says something as the Joker. That video got so many comments about people bitching at him, going, oh, I thought you weren't going to play the Joker again. He's not. That was a Tara Strong video of her showing off all her voices, or some of her voices at least. She sits on his lap to say something as Harley Quinn, and then he just goes, oh, Harley, you're always there when I need you, aren't you? And then leans on her. That's literally all he says. It's just to show off that he can do the voice. He's not going to play the Joker again because, like he said, his Joker died when we lost Kevin Conroy, which is really touching because those two are really good friends and stuff. The best Batman Joker duo we've ever had. But like, yeah, Mark Hamill, I love the Arkham games because of him. He did such a good Joker in the Arkham games. Like, that was such a good Joker. He's also Joker in the Lego DC games too. That's just so fucking brilliant. And then I'm enjoying Phoenix's Joker. I'm really looking forward to Joker 2 with Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. I'm curious because they haven't made her a doctor. They've made her a patient, and I think that's a good take. But the reason why I ask is because have you ever played the Telltale games of Batman?
No, I haven't. I've heard they're actually quite good, but I have not played.
Okay, so there's two of them, and they do change a lot of stuff. So they've made Penguin really, really tied into Bruce Wayne's childhood. Oswald and Bruce were childhood best friends. Things like this. They changed a lot of the lore. And the one thing they changed was the Joker. But I actually like, for what they, again, like you said, for what the story they told, they did a very good job. Really interesting take. In the Telltale, this is the second game, Harley Quinn is a part of like a rogue of villains. Bane's one of them. And she's like, they're trying to like take over Gotham. I can't remember what they're trying to do. They're trying to do something. Joker isn't Joker yet at the beginning of the game. You meet Joker because Bruce Wayne gets put in Arkham Asylum, and he's called John Doe because he doesn't remember his name. He doesn't know his name. He doesn't know the name that's on his birth certificate. So everyone just calls him John Doe. And he's wacky and kooky and a bit, but he's not Joker just yet. So as Bruce Wayne, you're trying to help him because he joins Harley Quinn's group as a thug. Now, like I said, Harley Quinn's already Harley Quinn. She's not a doctor to Joker. She's already Harley Quinn. So, as Bruce Wayne, you are now a thug. You literally join Harley Quinn's group trying to help out John Doe to get rid of the bad guys. As Batman, John Doe wants to be like the next Robin type thing and wants to be a superhero. So, for the first half of the game, literally like John Doe, air quote John Doe, is like throwing batarangs and trying to be a superhero. He like blows up something by accident and things like this. And in the Telltale games, it's all about decisions. What you say, what you do affects the game. But either way, he becomes the Joker because as Bruce Wayne, he keeps leaving all the time. He keeps abandoning John Doe to be Batman. But as Batman, he's like, you can't be a superhero, dude. You need to sort your head out. And both his two best friends, Batman and Bruce Wayne, abandon him. And that makes him go, yeah, fuck you. Why, my friends abandoned me. Why am I here trying to be a superhero when I can just kill everybody? And because Batman and Bruce Wayne abandon him, he goes, but not even more, and becomes the Joker. I think that's a really good way to fucking tell a Joker story. That was really, really good. Not the Joker, obviously, and they did Harley Quinn wrong, obviously, but a really good way to do their story.
Oh, absolutely, and that sounds fantastic. And I'm here for kind of reinterpreting these characters in their different, in their different stories. Like, just circling back and tying this together with the new Batman cartoon. And one of the things that they did, because the Batman animated series that we love, that we all grew up with, was like ambiguously set in a 20s feeling period, but they never really gave a time period. In this one, they just go ahead and commit to it, and it's the 20s. They set the Roaring 20s as the time period, and they change a lot of stuff. Oh, the whole Rogues Gallery is different. We see Clayface, and he's more based on like Vincent Price. So they take the Rogues Gallery and they connect it to different things. And we do see Harley Quinn. We actually don't see the Joker yet, at least, not to the point. I haven't finished the entire series yet either, but so far we haven't seen Joker. And Harley Quinn is completely separate than him. She is a psychologist, but she's a psychologist who has this alter ego kind of on the side and has nothing to do with the Joker. And I feel like there was a lot of people super mad about that. That, you can't take Harley Quinn and connect and have her without the Joker. But I think a lot of them are missing something, because I think a lot of people think Harley Quinn is from the comics, and she's not. She is from the Batman animated series. That's where she was created, and she just became crazy popular, and everyone loved her. But I feel like if one Batman animated series can create her, then the second one can recreate her. I don't actually have a problem with them taking her in a whole different direction, because the other one created her in the first place. So I'm actually very comfortable with them doing some interesting stuff with her because, you know, like I said, what one Batman cartoon can do, I feel the other Batman cartoon can redo.
See, something else that really bugs me as well, and again, I'm like big on the whole adaptation thing, is a lot of people take certain characters and go, oh, that's not what the comic book does. But one thing that people have to understand is comic books have been around for a very long time. Batman as a character is like as a published character is almost 100 years old. Like he's like, I think it's like 8 years, something like that now, from 100 years old. Like it's nuts. So like, okay, Professor Xavier is one as well. Professor Xavier does my head in. A lot of people keep talking about who will be Professor Xavier in the MCU, and everyone's like, oh, they got to get the chair right. But here's the funny thing. In the comic books, Professor Xavier hasn't been in the chair for years. Like, in canon, he now walks around, but he's got Cerebro permanently on. Like, that's his helmet. It's a type of Cerebro anyway. It's not actually Cerebro, but it's like a more advanced version. But he hasn't been in the wheelchair for years in actual life, for in like published comics for years. I think the last time he was in the wheelchair was like 2017 or something like that. It's been yonks, and it's just like little things like, oh, people bitch about Venom. Yes, okay, the Venom films aren't exactly all praised for, but Venom isn't a bad guy. He's not a villain. He hasn't been a villain in so long. He's been an anti-hero, and now in the comics, he's back with Peter Parker. Because Peter Parker even says to Venom, I need you. You're a hero. Don't fool yourself. Come on, let's go. And they merge again for the first time in like years, like decades. And it's just like, Venom's not a villain. He's now technically like an anti-hero going to hero, but an anti-hero. Stop trying to make him like out to be a bad guy. He's not one. And it's little things like this that really do matter. Like Harley Quinn is one of them. Everyone keeps saying that Harley Quinn should be with Joker. Harley Quinn hasn't been with a Joker in the comic book for almost a decade. She's been a lesbian and all sorts of stuff since fucking, like, you know, shacking with the Joker. It hasn't happened in years. And it's just like, you do realize there's other stories people can tell. So when they do make certain changes, I understand why, you know, like, you know, it does, like, but I don't understand why people are so, I understand why people can be a bit, you know, uptight about adaptations, but there's certain things you just need to let go. Like Penguin being a woman. Who the fuck cares? She's still the Penguin. Like, it's actually a very good Penguin too.
Oh, absolutely. So far, I have to say that so far what they've done with all the villains, like I actually loved their Clayface. I've really liked where they've taken. Now, don't get me wrong. Did I have to take a step back for a second and go, okay, they're definitely doing the Rogues Gallery different. They're definitely doing their own twist, and I had to readjust my mind. Absolutely, I had to go, okay, these are not the same characters. But once I did that, they're doing a fantastic job with them.
Well, it's like Marvel at the minute are not redoing, but they're doing another Ultimate Universe. And the reason why it's still called the Ultimate Universe is because the Ultimate Universe in comics was made to portray darker, grittier, more standard, more grounded, more personal stories for these characters. So Spider-Man started the Ultimate Universe in the newer edition, and he's got a beard, he's married to MJ, and all sorts of stuff, and he's actually made the Green Goblin as a hero. Starts off as being I'm not full up to date. I'm a couple issues behind. Pardon me. And I do believe that he is now evil. I could be wrong, but he actually helped make the Green Goblin of some kind. Peter Parker has involvement to it, which obviously doesn't happen in the original timeline or the original Ultimate timeline. And like DC, Absolute Power is the current convocation. They're making the Absolute Universe, and they've showed off Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. The only three characters they've shown off so far. And they've said Superman does not have his humanity. As in, he was raised as a human and stuff like that, but when Jor-El says, hey, I need you to be a Kryptonian, I need you to be the defender of Earth, he takes it and he's serious. He's not your fun-loving farm boy in this universe. And they've already said that before the issue's even out. And Batman gets a lot of flack. But I love so Batman's new suit, the bat symbol, does not look like a bat. It looks like a square with ridges all over it. And he's got like, his cape can become like sharp and bladed. But here's the thing. They've said, Bruce Wayne is not a billionaire. He's not rich in this universe. That's the big difference between the absolute universe and the main continuity. Bruce Wayne is not a billionaire, which means his suit is handcrafted, which means he wouldn't better make a fucking bat logo in the first place. So when people go, that's not the bat logo, it looks trash. I'm like, yeah, but if you learn why, it makes fucking sense. It's actually a good thing. I'm sorry, no way. Not every single person who makes their own suit is gonna able to make a bat logo. That's bullshit. That's not even realistic. The absolute universe is the DC. DC's even said the absolute universe is to counter the Marvel Ultimate Universe. They want to do more grounded, less multiversal, less flashy universe, and that's why Batman isn't a billionaire, because Batman has the answer to everything. Iron Man has the answer to everything, because they're both fucking rich. Take away money, what are they going to do? That's the whole point of this new version of Batman. I am so here for it. I can't wait to see what they do with it.
No, absolutely. I hadn't even actually heard about that, and I'm now super excited about it.
Yeah, I keep up with the comic, but even though I'm not reading all of them, I keep up to what's happening because I'm intrigued.
And kind of circle back to something that you said, that when you were talking about Harlequin not being with the Joker and Professor X not being in the chair. I actually watched a really interesting video on that recently, pointing out that now they have been, both of these, this is actually true of both of them, they have been not in that situation far, far, far longer than they ever were. Professor X only spent a certain amount of time in that chair. He has been out of that chair for a really long time, longer than he ever spent in it. I think it's just because certain people's exposure to these stories are in certain ways. Like I feel like most people who are trying to say, oh, Harlequin should be with the Joker because it's in the comics, they've probably never read a comic. They watch the Batman cartoon that I watch. That's their source material.
But see, this is the thing. There's always something you can go watch if you want to know. Like, okay, X-Men 97. That is some of the best Marvel media we've had in years. I don't know if you've watched the 97 cartoon they did.
No, I haven't. I want to, because of course I grew up watching the X-Men cartoon. I definitely want to, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Well, pre-warned, it's not like the cartoon, the 96 cartoon, because it's aimed at the people who watched the 96 cartoon. So it's more mature because we've matured. That's the whole point of it. So it isn't going to be, dandy and stuff. It's dark and it's good. Like, I have a dad group chat that I'm in. Some of the story writers I work with are in it. Basically, we're all dads, and I made a group chat for us to now. Every single Wednesday, the 97 came out. From the Wednesday on to the Friday, because, some of them has jobs, different time frames, we have kids, etc., etc. We wouldn't talk at all. We literally wouldn't even message the group chat until everybody had watched it. On the Friday, one of us would go on, watched it. And then we wouldn't say anything until every single one of us had said, yeah, watched it. And then all the rest of the week until the following Wednesday, we'd all talk about X-Men 97. That's how good it was. We were all talking about it non-stop. And it is the comic books from the 90s, from the 80s, from the early 2000s. Xavier's in the chair. We've got Gambit, who's exactly the same as the Gambit from 96. Rogue doesn't want to touch people, etc., etc., etc. It's exactly the same as the 96 cartoon in that respect. It goes back to the early days of comics. If you want that version of the X-Men, go watch that. That's there for you to watch. Just because something else isn't going to do it, don't watch it then. Don't read it then. It's not hard.
Oh, and I love that sentiment so much, and that is so much my sentiment, because there are absolutely things that I can look at and go, hey, that's not for me, but that doesn't mean I don't think that thing should exist. It doesn't mean I don't think it should be out there for other people, like Phoenix Joker. Really, I tried watching it. I really couldn't get into it. Not that I don't think it's good, just it wasn't the right pacing for me, and I couldn't get into the Joker took too long to Joker kind of thing. I felt more like I was watching Taxi Driver, which it is based on Taxi Driver. And it didn't work for me. Now, that doesn't mean he's not a good Joker, and that doesn't mean it's not a good movie, but it's definitely not for me. But I can at the same time acknowledge, hey, if I want my Mark Hamill Joker, I can still go watch the Mark Hamill cartoons. If I want my Heath Ledger Joker, I can go watch the Heath Ledger movies. I don't have it. Not every interpretation of a character has to be the one I like. It's okay for there to be variety because the stuff I like will still be there.
Yeah, to be fair, when I first watched Phoenix's Joker, I was a bit like, so this is like the longest origin story ever, sort of thing. The thing that sold me was in the film, there's scenes where he flirts with the woman, he actually hooks up with her, etc., etc. Right at the end, where he snaps and he becomes the Joker. One of the things that make him the Joker is he walks into our apartment. His mum's just died. He walks into the apartment, this woman's apartment, and this woman who we've seen him date, we've seen him like hook up with and everything, screams her lungs out. She is terrified that this guy's walked into her apartment. She is screaming, asking who he is, what's he doing there, and all sorts of stuff. So he kills her. Basically, it's all in his head. He's never even talked to the woman before. Every scene we've seen has been in his head. And there was no inkling at all that made us believe, oh yeah, that's just in his imagination. Not once. And till the scene that he kills her, we're like, oh fuck, that's in his mind the entire time. Some people still didn't get it until after the film. Some people were still confused. And it's just like, that what sold me on the film. That was good storytelling. That was genius. Like that was good. And to be fair, Phoenix is actually a really good actor. I do enjoy him as an actor, to be honest. But again, I respect people who go, that's not the Joker, because there are things in that film that I disagree with, like the whole Bruce Wayne thing. That shouldn't be a thing. No, don't include Bruce. Like if they scrapped all the Bruce Wayne bollocks, I would have been that's almost a good Joker, like the best Joker movie. Like, but they included Bruce Wayne to it. It was not needed. It was dumb. It wasted time that you could have spent making him more insane about something.
Oh, totally agree. And like I said, those elements, because I've, of course, seen clips and all that kind of stuff. Those are all elements I love. I just have a problem with movie pacing, being, with my ADHD brain. It's very hard for me if a movie is slow starting to power through it. I can do it and have done it for certain movies, but that was kind of my flaw with that one, was just, it was hard for me to get to those excellent parts.
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable. So for an example, the sequel Star Wars trilogy, I don't like at all, and so many people don't like it, but I don't like it for reasons that other people don't seem to have an issue with. Like number 8, to me, is pointless. The whole film, nothing happens. It's literally a pointless movie. The pacing of it makes no fucking sense. It's just like, all right, okay.
Well, and it's interesting because the prequel movies, Star Wars movies, are actually movies that I really like. But the reason why is because it's so funny, because I actually watched them because those were the ones that were coming out when I was a teenager. And so I actually weirdly watched the movies in chronological order as they occur. So when I watched the prequels, I had never watched the original Star Wars movies.
So with the prequels, they came out and I was a kid. So Star Wars was like, when did Star Wars 4, 5, and 6 come out? Like,
oh, well before I was born.
I was gonna say they've been around for a while. I didn't watch them until I don't know. I must have been 7, something like that, when I first watched it. And to me, again, the same thing with it. I'm like, yeah, this is cool, but it's outdated. Fuck, I'm a child at this point.
Yeah.
So the new Star Wars to me was the prequel trilogy. The first one was good. The second one was I enjoy it. The third one, however, is one of my favorite Star Wars films, and I don't care what anyone says. I love the third film. I think it's really good. I love the way Anakin just shifts to the dark side. I love the way the way he acts, like the way that he when he first bows down to Palpatine and he's like, yes, my lord, he looks miserable. He looks sad. You can hear, like, his voice sounds like he's trying to swallow a hard pill or something. It's just really good. It's a shame Mace Windu dies. That's a bit of a bummer. But, I love, hell, you can see it here on Discord. My name on Discord is Obi-Wan Kenobi because of Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, legit, why? And, like, yes, I love the original trilogy. They're really good films. I actually think number 6 is my favorite, which a lot of people argue with me for. I actually think 6 is really good. The sequel trilogy, though, I find really fucking pointless. I cannot watch them. I have watched them. I am actually in the middle of rewriting number 8 and 9 for a YouTube video, like fixing plot points and stuff, because I truly stand on this. They should have made Rey the bad guy and Kylo Ren the good guy by the end.
See, and I have such mixed feelings about those sequels, and I kind of feel like they contain some of my favorite Star Wars. I stand by. They have some things in them that I adored, but that overall, like, they waste some characters, like Finn. I feel Finn's character is just completely. He starts off as one of the most interesting concepts ever, like the defecting clone trooper. Oh,
Yeah.
not clone trooper by that point, stormtrooper. But and then nothing. Just they don't ever go anywhere with that. Although I am going to say we do probably need to wrap up this episode. I want to come back. I want to have another conversation like this with you. but I actually do have to be getting going. So we got some time. We can go ahead and wrap up. Anything else you want to mention? But we do got to be drawing to a close here.
No, honestly, in about 5 minutes' time, I would have said the same thing, because for me, it's 1:45 in the morning. So,
Oh, wow.
like, I'm used to it. I've got a lot of American friends. But, dude, you want to come back so we can geek out more? Absolutely 110%. I have guests returning. Give me a couple of weeks. Let me get some other guests on and stuff. And yes, 100,000%, you can come back and we can just geek out about movies and comic books still. It's been a blast, bro. Honestly, I've been following you for years, and I'm still on that phase where I'm really awkward contacting people, like getting people as guests, and like. So like when I contacted you, I was like, he's mostly not even going to acknowledge me. And you were really quick, like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh wow, okay, cool. Like,
Well,
to me, you're like a guy that entertains me on TikTok. So for the fact that we're having this conversation is mind blowing.
Oh, I've had the same thing where there's been these people like, oh, I know them from TikTok. Oh, wait, they answered my call. I'm like, oh my God, I'm starstruck. But no, I adore this. I'm like I said, you're my new friend, whether you want to be or not. And I'm definitely want to do this again and have another episode at some point. Same thing. I feel waits a while. Of course, I've got like 5,000 irons in the fire, with the book stuff and the different social media stuff. So yeah, I'm often hard to pin down, but I will absolutely make time for this because this has been an absolute blast.
Awesome. Well, just before we go, this is the point where you can like tell people where they can go find you and things. The stage is yours.
All right. The main place you're going to find us is on TikTok at The Grey Matters Blog. If you go to TikTok and type in The Grey Matters Blog, you'll find us. If you go to TikTok and just type in hypothetical questions, you'll also probably find us. We are also the book, which we talked about a million years ago on this podcast because it's been going that long. But Rhymes in Stone, which is the paranormal mystery that my wife and I wrote, is available on Amazon or literally anywhere books are sold. And also make sure you check out Audio with an H on either Apple or Android app stores, where you will be able to listen to it. We're not there yet. Give us about another month, but the app already exists and you can go ahead and check it out. So that's another thing to check out that we will be on and be a big part of. So that's pretty much where you can check us out and what you can get from us.
Awesome. Well, again, bro, thank you so much for coming on. Like you said, we're friends for life. You're stuck with me now. Like I've said this, you're stuck on me. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Of course, if you're listening to us on podcast platforms, give us a follow. If you listen to us on YouTube, subscribe. And I've been Ty Tiger. I'm your host, obviously, and it's been an absolute blast. Don't forget to roar of passion, everybody. I love everyone, and we shall see you guys in the next one.
This podcast is a production of the Three Ranger Bros Studios, in association with Zio to Hero, the podcast.